Perfect. Hey, Shadab. Hello, Aishwarya. Okay. Mm. When you talk about math, Surya Harsha, when you're talking about most of the development area in cybersecurity, such as malware development or malware analysis, that would require a lot of math, I would say, because you would be working on a lot of coding in that. Okay. But other than that, when you talk about other penetration testing jobs, it's more about thinking out of the box and trying to find loopholes in the systems and trying to perform attacks on those. Okay. So this is more about you learning new things, researching for the latest vulnerabilities from time to time, and performing attacks with those vulnerabilities in your organization. Okay. So when you talk, this course does not require much math unless you're learning development or you're going into programming. That requires some of, again, more of, I would say, development knowledge or mathematical knowledge there. Okay. But other than that, what we are learning, this requires you to understand the tools and the techniques on which you are using to attack these different endpoints, different machines in an organization. Okay. Hi, Abdul. Can you hear me? Hello. Abdul, I think there's some issue with your microphone. I can see your speaker turning up, but I don't hear your voice. Okay, perfect, Abdul. Okay, okay. Hi, Mahinder. I hope you can hear me as well. Mahinder, Akshay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hey. Mahinder, did you join the session yesterday by any chance? Were you there for the
No,
demo?
sir.
Oh, this is your
No,
first.
no.
Okay, because there was one more student yesterday with the same name. So I just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
Okay, guys, let's get started without any further ado. Before we do so, a quick formal introduction on my name is Mohammed Shoaib. I will be your cybersecurity trainer for the rest of the course duration. And again, I've had an experience of more than 5+ years in this domain of teaching cybersecurity, and more than that, in practical experience as well as a web application penetration tester and a SOC analyst, security operations center analyst. I've had knowledge on tools like Splunk, IBM QRadar, again, for web application pen testing, Burp Suite Pro, etc., etc. Okay. Now, again, what we are talking about today, when you come to the demo, is on certified ethical hacking version 12. Now, again, we are not again allowed to use version 13 already, guys, because again, this has been recently launched, just 40, or I would say, yeah, 40 days ago or so. Those version 13, the latest version. But again, we will also be discussing the latest topics included in version 13. So the only new addition to version 13 is the usage of AI tools to perform certain automations here and there. Okay, we'll be using ChatGPT for that, obviously, and some other AI tools as well. But other than that, there is no other difference in the entire rest of the course curriculum. The same 20 modules, okay, same things, same concepts, same attacks, okay. But certain things have been automated with the usage of AI, with certain prompts and all. Okay. So again, we could call it practically version 13, but on paper it would be version 12 further for the demo today. Okay, right. So before we do so, I hope everyone can hear me perfectly clear and there are no issues with the audio or the video. Before we get started, one last confirmation. Perfect. So what is the pre-knowledge of cybersecurity we are going to learn? Yes, again, to clarify that, Shada, we will be learning everything from scratch. Okay. There are no prerequisites required for this course. Whatever is required is included in the course itself. So again, in certain other institutes, they might ask you to learn networking fundamentals, Linux basic commands, virtualization, how to install the lab. So this might be required in other institutes. But to make it easier for you all, we have included those topics in the course curriculum itself. So in the very first few beginning classes itself, we learn about networking concepts. What are IP addresses? What are different categories of IPs? IPv4, IPv6. We talk about various protocols, DNS, DHCP protocols. Then we shift to Linux commands, how to install a Linux OS and what are the basic operational commands in it. Okay, so we talk about all this in the very beginning. So all the prerequisites are covered in the course itself. You don't need to learn anything from anywhere else to get into this. All you need is a machine to perform the practicals on. I'll discuss the configuration later. And an I would say, eagerness to learn. Okay, that's the only requirement for this course, nothing else. All the prerequisites are covered in the course itself. Okay. Now, getting into this domain, the demo, the course is called Certified Ethical Hacking. And a lot of students have a misconception about hacking and ethical hacking. They assume it most of the times to be same. But again, that's not the case. Let me clarify these by defining each of these terms. What is hacking and what is ethical hacking and how they are different from one another. Okay. So firstly, when you talk about hacking, this is the procedure of trying to gain access to information systems. What I mean by that phrase, gaining access to information systems, is if I were a hacker and if I were hacking your device, whether it be a computer or a mobile phone or a server or whatever it be, I basically get remote control of that device. I can access the data on that device. I can control the data, delete the data, modify the data, or sell that data to other people according to my operations. Okay, and all of this is done without your consent and without your knowledge. Okay, so that's what gaining access to information systems means: having control of the entire data of the third party person without their knowledge or without their consent. Okay, so hacking is a procedure of trying to gain access to these information systems and the data within them without the permission or without the knowledge of the organization owning those systems. And this is usually performed by hackers for their own benefit. So once they've gotten access to that data, they can sell it most often than not to get again some financial benefits out of it. And some hackers are so mischievous, they can even do it just for fun. Okay, just for the sake of it, just to disrupt services, they can even perform hacking. Okay. On the other hand, when you talk about ethical hacking, whenever you see the term ethical, it usually means legal or allowed, right? So ethical is where you have set some boundaries and you're not crossing any lines. So to define ethical hacking here, this is the procedure of trying to find vulnerabilities. So this terminology called vulnerability is something that will keep coming across a lot of times in the upcoming days. So to define a vulnerability, it's a loophole, it's a flaw or a weakness in the system and the security of it. So your job as an ethical hacker is to find these loopholes in the information systems, because these loopholes are what hackers use to get access to your device. They take advantage of those loopholes in the security and they attack your systems. So your job as an ethical hacker is to find those loopholes before the hackers do. And once a loophole has been found, once a vulnerability or a weakness has been found, you have to report it back to the organization so that they can take measures, security measures to remediate that loophole. Okay. So they would apply the necessary security updates, or they would, again, this is also commonly known as patching. So they would apply the necessary security patches and they would see to it that the system does not contain that loophole anymore. And by that, you're trying to prevent any further harm or cyber threats. So your job as an ethical hacker is to find the loopholes and report it back to the organization. And all of this is done with the consent and with the permission and the knowledge of the organization. So you work hand in hand with the organization and find the loopholes and report it back to them. Once the reporting is done, the company patches them up and sees through that there are no further ways of exploiting those loopholes and getting any access to the data. Okay, so that's the main, I would say, the concept or the objective of ethical hacking: protecting the organizations from these so-called cyber criminals. Okay. Now, depending on these two terms of hacking and ethical hacking, we can categorize the types of hackers. And there are three main categories. There's someone known as a white hat hacker, there's someone known as a gray hat hacker, and then there's someone known as a black hat hacker. Okay. Your black hat hackers first are basically someone who performs hacking for their own benefit or for fun without asking for consent. And these people can also commonly be known as cyber criminals. So cyber criminals are people who get access to your data without your permission, without your knowledge, and they perform all sorts of activity with that data without your, again, consent as well. On the other end of the spectrum, we have someone known as a white hat hacker. White hat hackers are people who abide by the laws and policies of the organization, and they work for securing that organization's data, okay, or the infrastructure. So they try to find the loopholes and remediate them and prevent any cyber threats. And therefore, they're also commonly known as penetration testers or ethical hackers. And in between, there's a third mysterious category called gray hat hackers. Okay. So these people have both the qualities of a black hat hacker as well as a white hat hacker. Like a black hat hacker, they don't ask for permission first. But like a white hat hacker, once they find a vulnerability, they report it back to the company. Okay. But there is a minor catch here. The minor condition here is these people don't do it for free. They do it in return for a bounty. A bounty is like a financial reward they would expect in return to report that vulnerability. So once I find a vulnerability, I tell the company that I found a vulnerability and I would report it to them for a certain price. Okay. So they're both, again, working both offensively and defensively at various stages with both the properties, hence the name gray hat hackers. Okay. And they're also commonly known as bug bounty hunters. They hunt for bugs or loopholes or vulnerabilities in the organization for a bounty in return. Hence the name bug bounty hunters. Okay. And all these three categories of hackers are professionals who perform hacking or ethical hacking in a certain procedure. That procedure is called as cyber killchain. Some organizations also refer to as hacking cycle guys. So before I define this and before we discuss what procedures are followed in hacking cycle, any questions or any doubts up to this point? Again, regarding what is hacking, what is ethical hacking, and what are the categories of hackers? Aishwarya, Akshay, Mahinder, Shadab, Sachin, Surya Harshit, and Abdul. No, this is the first class itself. A demo to give you a brief understanding on what the course is about and what topics we'll be covering throughout the course. No. We are going to cover that from the next session. So one student asked, again, I'm running this session on two different links actually for two different institutes. So again, one of the students in the other link asked if we need any prerequisites. So I just explained that we'll be covering this in the course itself in the upcoming days. Okay, perfect. Others, any questions, guys? Okay, Akshay says no. Mahinder says clear. Surya, any questions? Sachin, any questions? Shadab, any questions? Aishwarya, any questions? Yes, Sachin. This course is specifically prepared for people who are just getting into cybersecurity, who are taking the first step into cybersecurity. Okay, so this is completely beginner friendly, which will give you a complete understanding of all the job roles that are available in cybersecurity and how do you get started in this with a penetration tester's job role. Okay. How many types of certificates in cybersecurity are available? Which is the first certificate for freshers? Again, there's tons and tons of certification, Shadab. Just to give you a glimpse from EC Council itself, you can just go to your browser and in the browser, you can search for EC Council. Okay. And if you click on the first link here, this is the organization which is providing all the certifications for cybersecurity. These are all the certifications available. Okay. But the first step to take is always certified ethical hacking. That is the first, again, the fundamental course that anyone gets started with in cybersecurity. Okay. And that is what we are trying to learn here. This is the demo for that same course, certified ethical hacking. Okay. So that is what we are learning. Is that clear? Shadab, any questions? Perfect. Okay, moving on. So let's talk about the hacking cycle. So as mentioned, hacking cycle is a procedure that hackers follow in order to perform a successful cyber attack. Okay. And And the same knowledge of this procedure is also used by cybersecurity professionals or by ethical hackers to understand these attacks at the very basic level. Okay, so how are these attacks being performed? What is the loophole that these people are using to perform this attack, and how can you prevent this attack or detect it at an early stage? So the procedure is pretty similar, no matter what category of a hacker you are. One misuses that procedure to perform an attack. One uses that procedure to prevent those same attacks. Okay, so the procedure followed by both hackers and ethical hackers as well to attack the system or prevent these attacks respectively at every level of the organization is called a cyber kill chain or hacking cycle. And this consists of 5 important steps, guys. Step number 1 is basically you can, oh, 1 second. I've got a question. After ethical hacking certification, can we apply for job? And so I confused between data science versus cybersecurity by job perspective. Okay, no worries, Shadab. I'll come to that. I actually did explain what jobs we can apply for earlier in the beginning of the session, but I think you weren't there. But no worries, I will be covering that point one more time again in a while. Okay. So coming back to this, so as mentioned, when you talk about cyber kill chain or a hacking cycle, there are 5 important steps to this, guys. Step number 1, you have something called information gathering. Step number 2 is scanning. Step number 3 is gaining access. Step number 4 is maintaining access. And step number 5 is reporting or clearing traces. And if you clearly observe here, only in the last step have 2 different terminologies. There is either reporting or clearing traces. Now, from that, we can understand no matter what category of a hacker you are, first 4 steps are exactly similar. There is no change in the procedure in the first 4 steps. What varies or what changes is only the last step. So if you are a white hat hacker or a gray hat hacker, you report the vulnerabilities to the organization. You generate a report and tell them what loopholes are existing and what needs to be remediated. On the other hand, if you're a black hat hacker, you don't report anything at all. You do not let the organization know that you're attacking them. So what you do is you try to remove all the evidences of your actions. You try to remove your footprints, the logs that are generated, etc., etc. And that in simple terms is called as clearing traces. Okay. So don't worry. Now we're going to talk about each of these terms one by one briefly to give you a complete understanding of the entire course curriculum. Okay. So the first step is called as information gathering. So it can also be commonly known as reconnaissance or footprinting. So again, don't get confused, guys. These are the different terminologies used for the same concept of information gathering. Okay. And the main objective of this procedure here is to gather as much data or information as possible about the target organization. But an important point to note here is you get this information passively. What I mean by passively is you do not contact the organization in any way, or you don't let the organization know that you're getting information about them. All of this data is obtained from third-party sources, especially the internet itself. Okay. So the more data you get, the more data you can research and find, the more possibilities you find to attack the system. So that is why this is one of the most crucial steps, okay, in the entire workflow of an ethical hacker or a hacker. 40% of the time goes into information gathering itself, getting as much data or collecting as much data as possible about the organization. Because more possibilities you find, I mean, sorry, more information you find, more possibilities pop up to attack the target system. Okay. But the main question that arises here is what kind of information are you looking for? What data do you need to gather here? And this is the information as follows. So as an ethical hacker or a hacker, you would need the IP addresses of the organization, or they're also commonly known as network blocks, the group of IPs assigned to every device in the organization. Now, don't worry what an IP address is, guys. We'll talk about that later in the upcoming sessions. But basically, it's an identity for every device on the internet. Okay, so you need to find the IP addresses, you need to find the who's records, you need to find DNS records, you need to find the domains and subdomains of the organization, you need to find the operating system information, you need to find the employee details, such as contact numbers, email addresses of the employees, or usernames and passwords as well of the employees, which might have been leaked online anywhere in data breaches. Okay. Now, I completely understand that some pieces of information here might seem a bit gibberish to you. You might not understand certain terminologies. But don't worry, as we progress with the classes, you will equally understand, as again at the same level as mine, what these terminologies are and why do we need them? Okay. So to give you brief intro on each of these terminologies, IP address is the identity for the device. Whose record is giving information about who is hosting a website. So if I have my own website today, I need to host it somewhere. Okay. So there are companies like GoDaddy, BigRock, HostGator, etc., etc. So whose record tells you which company is hosting a website for them. DNS records are basically information stored in DNS servers. Domain or subdomains are the names of the websites. You all know what OS is, operating system. So what operating system are they using? Are they using Windows operating system, Linux operating system servers? Okay. And employee details. Again, contact numbers, phone numbers, email addresses, usernames, and passwords. Okay. Now it might seem very tough to believe, guys, but trust me, all of this information is readily available on the internet. The only thing is you need to know what domains, I mean, sorry, what websites are those from where you can get this information. Okay. So again, just to give you a brief intro on what websites we'll be visiting, one or two, you can do some research about this later on. So we work with websites like DNS Dumpster. This is one website to give you the DNS records of any organization. Okay. So for example, if I wanted the DNS records of wipro.com, I can just search the domain here, wipro.com. And when I hit enter, these are the DNS servers of Wipro, where they are located, their exact IP addresses. Again, very crucial for a hacker or an ethical hacker. And again, Wipro is using Outlook for their mail server, exact IP of their mail server. Okay. And these are all the domains and subdomains of Wipro with their exact IPs, giving you information on what server it is, Apache, Linux server. Okay. So again, this information is very crucial for a hacker or an ethical hacker. Now, you might have a question, is this legal in the first place? Yes, this is completely legal. Wipro itself provides this information, but again, it's not stored in one single place. It's scattered across the internet on various different servers. This website, DNS Dumpster, does the job of collecting that information from various sources and keeps it in one single place. Okay, so this information needs to be provided by Wipro itself publicly, but DNS Dumpster collects all that information and puts it in one place for easy access. Okay. So this is one website. Then we work with another website called Shodan, a very popular website. You can do some research on this as well. Okay. Then we work with another website called Netcraft. Okay. So these are some very popular websites which are used by cybersecurity professionals to get all this data, which I've mentioned here. There's a lot more as well, but since this is just a demo session, I might be limited by time to show all that data. Okay. But this is a brief intro on what information gathering is. Once all this information has been gathered, then that information is utilized in the next phase. So the output of this phase is the input for the next phase. Okay. So next phase, when we talk about scanning, which is also commonly known as enumeration, here we get some extra info, okay, by making aggressive or active connections on the data we got earlier. Okay, so earlier we got the information passively. Here we get the information actively. What I mean by actively is whatever IP addresses you got, whatever emails you got, whatever, again, domains or subdomains you obtain, on all of those, you make direct connections. You try to contact those devices and you get some extra data from them. And to understand what that data is, we can break down scanning in three parts again. Okay, so there's something called network scanning, there's something called port scanning, and then there's something called as vulnerability scanning. Network scanning is where, as an organization which has multiple devices, you need to know what devices exist in that organization. Okay. What servers are they using? What client operating system devices are they using? How many firewalls do they have? What firewalls are they using? Are they using Cisco's firewalls? Are they using Palo Alto firewalls? Okay. Getting information on what devices are active in that organization. Next, once you know what devices are active, on those devices, you try to figure out what ports are open. Okay. And on those ports, what services or what applications are running. Now, don't worry what ports are. We'll cover that later on. Okay. From very basics or from scratch. Okay. But basically, we try to figure out on each of those devices what sort of data is coming in and what sort of data is going out on those different services. And finally, we perform vulnerability scanning, where we try to figure out in that system on those services, are there any weak services or loop or which have a loophole, a vulnerability in them? Okay. And through those vulnerabilities, we try to attack the system. So it's a step-by-step procedure. Finding the devices in the organization, on those devices, finding what services are running, on those services, checking for vulnerabilities to attack on. Okay. And during this phase, we'll be using two very important tools. One is called Nmap. Again, this is asked in a lot of job descriptions. Network Mapper. This tool has been there since 1997. Okay. It's 27 years old, but yet even in today's world, this tool is very predominantly used, okay, in every organization. One of the best available tools for network scanning and port scanning. And luckily for us, completely open source. Anyone can download it for free. Okay. Secondly, there's a tool called Tenable Message. So if you've ever heard about this, a very popular tool again, and quite an expensive tool as well. So if you click on buy, you can see this is around, so this is expert or pro, any version. It's around $7,000. And that too only for 1 year subscription again. Okay. So we'll be practically working on all these tools, guys. So what I'm trying to show here is whatever we work on in the upcoming days, I'm going to show the practicals on real-time environments with hands-on applications. Okay. So the tools that we are going to use in the upcoming sessions are the same exact tools used in real time. No theory nonsense. Okay. We'll go everything practically hands-on, okay, with the same tools that I have had experience working on in organizations. Okay. So up to here, any questions, anyone? Akshay, Mahinder, Sachin, Surya, Aishwarya, Abdul. Any questions in information gathering? Any questions in scanning? Come again, Abdul. I didn't get your question. Uh-huh. I would perform them practically myself, which you can replicate in your network as well. So that would be your, again, you will have the lab setup on your system, the exact same setup that I have on my device. And you can replicate that in your network as well. Okay, so you would have the exact same lab simulation. Okay, so I can perform it on real-time sites as well to show you. But since you might not be allowed to do that, you'll have your own lab simulation. Okay, and in that simulation itself, you can perform these to get the same exact understanding of how to use these tools in real time. Okay, right. Perfect. Moving on. After this is done, so once scanning is performed as well, then you get into the next phase, which is called as gaining access. So the phase where the real hacking occurs. Okay. So again, whatever information you got in the earlier phases, whatever vulnerabilities you found in the earlier phases, now you try to attack on those to get access to the system or the entire network of the organization or any certain application as well, any web app or any sort of software application on the target system. Okay. Now, again, this is the phase where you try to attack different endpoints. So one of the most important phases of the entire hacking cycle and covers a lot of topics, as you can see. Okay. So I've only included the most important ones here, guys, in the demo. I'll be sharing the course curriculum, which contains a lot more data there. Okay. But this is basically what we'll be covering in the gaining access module, some of the most important concepts. Okay. So the first concept we learn is system hacking. System hacking is where we learn how do you crack or bypass the password of any Windows operating system. So whether it be Windows 7, the oldest one, or the Windows 8.1, Windows 10, Windows 11, does not matter what version of Windows it be. We learn how do you crack the password for that operating system. Or if you're unable to crack it, if it is too tough to crack, how do you bypass it? Bypassing in the sense, without even entering the password, how do you get access to the internal data? Now you might have a question, how or why is this important? So if you yourself are under a cyber threat, and if you have been logged out of your own computer, if the hacker has changed the system's password, then you need to know how to get back access to your data. How do you get back into your system and access or make a backup of your own data? So for that, system hacking is very important. Okay. So please look at any of these topics from two perspectives, guys. One perspective is you could attack others' devices with this, or you can prevent these attacks on your systems. Okay. What you use it for becomes again becomes the main issue there. Okay. So again, if you're using it or misusing it, that would be something illegal. But you can also use these same things to protect your organization as well. Okay. Then there's malware attacks. Malwares are malicious softwares There's tons and tons of categories of malwares, viruses, worms, trojans, etc., etc. And we'll practically learn how to create malwares, how to detect malwares in our system, and how to defend our system from these malwares. What are the security measures to take to perform early detection of malwares or prevent these malware attacks? Then comes network penetration testing, where we learn what are the common attacks that are performed in a local network. Attacks like sniffing attack, man in the middle attack, denial of service attack, hacking Wi-Fi routers, cracking the password for Wi-Fi routers. So we learn what can hackers do if they're already inside your network. So how do they capture the data of others' devices through the network? So if you enter any username and password on your system, and if a hacker is connected in your network, he can actually capture those credentials. He can read those credentials. So how does that happen? How do they shut down remote servers? How do they crack your Wi-Fi passwords? All this is learned in network pen testing. Then we talk about social engineering, where we learn how do hackers create fake login pages, whether it be a social media page, a bank login page, your office or your organization VPN login page. Doesn't matter what page it is. How do hackers create fake exact replicas of your again login page and try to get your credentials? Then comes hacking web servers or web applications. So every organization has a website that acts as a face for the organization. Yep. So we learn how do you check for vulnerabilities on the front end and back end of that application? Like how do you attack web servers from the back end on the services that are running on it? Or how do you attack a website on the front end? Where attacks like SQL injection, cross-site scripting, broken authentication, file upload vulnerability, etc., will be shown. Okay. These attacks usually allow attackers to get access to your database or inject malicious scripts and steal cookies of other users or upload malicious files to a server and again get remote control of the server. All of this occurs in web application attacks. Then comes evading techniques. So if an organization has security measures, if they have IDS systems, IPS intrusion detection systems or prevention systems, or firewalls as well, how do you bypass those? How do you check for misconfigurations in these devices? And how do you try to again bypass these security measures to get access to the internal data? Then comes vulnerability assessment. So once you know that a certain system contains a certain vulnerability or a loophole, how do you assess that? How do you verify if that is truly existing or if it was just a false positive? Okay. Or how do you again understand the impact of it? What can that vulnerability cause? What issues can it generate in the organization? So that assessment is called as vulnerability assessment. Okay. Okay. Then finally, we have hacking mobile phones as well, where we learn how do you attack an Android phone and get remote connection to Android devices. Okay. So if you clearly observe here, we are trying to attack every single endpoint in an organization, as small as a mobile phone to as big as a web application server or a database. So you learn system hacking, network hacking, wireless hacking, web server hacking, web application hacking, firewall hacking, mobile phone hacking. So basically, your job as a penetration tester is to understand how do you attack and check for vulnerabilities on any device in the organization. And that is the objective of gaining access module here. Okay. Oh, I think I've got some questions. So will PPTs be shared? Yes, you will be getting all the recordings, you'll be getting all the presentation slides, you'll be getting the notes required for each of the classes with step-by-step notes as well. So all of this is shared to you directly. So these first few sessions are demo sessions, guys. So these are being uploaded on YouTube itself. You can search on YouTube itself, okay, for cybersecurity demo DurgaSoft. If not, as mentioned, they'll be sharing it. The respective institutes will be sharing it to your Google Drive directly once you register for the course. Okay. So class notes practice session. How can we do? Recorded video, can you share? Yeah, again, as mentioned, Sachin, you'll be getting all the recordings, you'll be getting all the notes. And in the upcoming sessions, we'll learn how to create a practical lab setup. So you whatever I perform in my setup here, you can replicate the same thing in your devices as well. Okay. So don't worry, every recording will be sent to you along with the notes as well by the institute itself. Okay. These are demo sessions, so these recordings are uploaded on YouTube. But once you register for the course, you'll be getting these recordings to your Google Drive directly as well. Okay. So after that is done, after we cover all these concepts, there are two small modules left out: maintaining access and reporting or clearing traces. Okay. Before that, any questions, any doubts up to this point? Anyone? Akshay, Mahinder, Sachin, Surya, Aishwarya, Abdul. Perfect. Right. Moving on. Last two modules left out for the demo, guys. Let's wrap it up here. So when you talk about maintaining access, this is where hackers try to retain the ownership of a device. What do I mean by that? So once I've hacked your phone, let's say, I should have connection to that phone no matter what. So even if you restart your phone, I should still be connected to you. So that is called as maintaining access. Okay. Retaining the ownership of the target in any scenario, in any worst case scenario also. Okay. And this maintaining access can also allow attackers to attack other systems from that infected system. Okay. So that's called post exploitation. Okay. From one attacked system, how do you infect other devices? Okay. So what we learn in maintaining access. Finally, there's reporting or clearing traces where we learn as an ethical hacker, how do you generate a report for the organization, elaborating all the loopholes in the systems of those organizations, and also providing solutions or again remediations to eradicate those loopholes or remove those loopholes. Okay. On the other hand, if you're a black hat hacker, you don't do this. You don't generate any report. You try to remove the evidence of all your actions. You delete the logs and erase the evidence of your actions and hide your identity so that you're untraceable. And the course will be covering both these endpoints. Okay. So you'll be learning in one way, how do you attack these devices as a non-ethical hacker, cyber criminal. On the other hand, you'll be learning how do you prevent these attacks as a cyber professional, okay, to secure your organization. Okay. And this is the entire 5-step hacking cycle procedure. Okay. And again, as mentioned, we will be covering all the same tools that are used in organizations in real time to simulate these attacks by hackers, also to prevent these attacks from a an ethical hacker's perspective. Okay. So again, as mentioned, this is the entire course curriculum here, guys. Oh, 1 second. I need to share it. Oh, sure. Yeah. All right. Yeah. This is the entire course curriculum. Again, I could not include this in the demo here, but this is the list of all topics we'll be covering. And as you can see, before we get into the advanced concepts, there's networking basics, Linux and Windows commands, and again, configuration of servers and devices, and installation of these devices to perform a lab setup. Okay. So in the session tomorrow, this is what we'll be learning. The first networking fundamental class is about IP addresses. So what is networking? What are networks? Okay. What are IP addresses? What are properties of an IPv4 address? What are categories of IP addresses? Okay. What is the first IP? What is the last IP? What are the different categories, classes, and public and private IPs? What are some important protocols, networking protocol like DNS, DHCP? So this is DHCP protocol. Okay, then we talk about DNS protocol. So all this is networking fundamentals, guys. Again, very important to get into cybersecurity. And we'll actually be covering all this in the next session. Okay. So again, as mentioned, all the prerequisites are included in the course itself. You don't need to learn anything from anywhere else. All you need is basically a device. And that device needs a minimum configuration of at least 6 GB of RAM. 8 GB is recommended, but if not, 6 is also fine. It might be a bit slow. Yeah. And at least 100 to 150 GB of free storage on your device. Okay. Processor can be anything. i3 will also work. If possible, i5 is recommended, but if not, i3 will also work perfectly fine. Okay. And as mentioned, all of these things, all of these notes and recordings will be shared to you directly from the institute itself once you register for the course. Okay. And anything that I'm missing out? Yeah, one more question that I have to clarify. Once this course is done, you can apply for these job roles here. So I've mentioned that already. You can apply for web application penetration tester. You can apply for IoT pen tester. You can apply for security consultant. You can apply for SOC analyst level 1 or level 2, junior security analyst, etc., etc. All of these job roles are for freshers itself, people who are just getting started. Okay. And the requirement for any of these job roles is the course Certified Ethical Hacking. Okay, the course that we're going to learn in the upcoming days. So you can apply for penetration tester job roles, SOC job roles, or again, as mentioned, your again VAPT, vulnerability assessment job roles or pen testing job roles as well. Okay, so that is to clarify what job roles you can perform. I mean, get jobs in later on. Okay. So yeah, that's a brief intro on what the course is about and what contents we'll be learning in the upcoming sessions, guys. Any questions, any doubts up to this point? Akshay, Aishwarya, Mahinder, Sachin, Surya, Abdul. Abdul, any questions? Yeah, I can share the curriculum. You can drop your email in the chat box, guys. If needed, I'll share this curriculum directly to your email itself. One second. Yes, I've got it, Abdul. You can drop your emails in the chat box, guys. I can share the curriculum there itself. Right. Oh, I think I've got one more email. Right. So yeah, that's that. Nothing further for the session today, as mentioned. And this covers, I mean, I hope it's all clear for everyone, understanding the entire course content and what the objective of this course is. And yes, the course will be at the same time every day from tomorrow. Again, Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time, IST, 8 p.m. itself, regular sessions, guys. So we are starting again. This is the first class. So we are beginning the batch from today itself. So we did take up the same demo yesterday, and I just repeated it today because again, all the students were new. And from tomorrow, we get into the networking fundamentals. So please do join the sessions. Do not miss it out. Okay. Because if you miss out any, you might be a bit confused in the upcoming ones. Okay? So the first class starts from tomorrow. Okay. At the same time, please do not miss out any sessions. Okay. So yeah, that's that. Nothing further. We can exit the session here, guys. Bye bye. Have a good day. Thanks for joining the session. I'll see you tomorrow at the same time on the same link. Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye bye.